Welcome, welcome, welcome. The conversation continues. I'm Michael Dismuke. I'm a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures RPG, lead writer on Captain's Log, the solo RPG for Star Trek Adventures, in addition to being a fiction writer and doing a lot of doodads and here and there for Star Trek and other genres. Of course, this is not a show, of course, unless I have my partner for almost going 4 into 5 years very soon, Jim Johnson.
Hey everybody, Jim Johnson. I am the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG and the Fallout RPG, both published by Modiphius Entertainment, and also a fiction writer and writer of various and sundry other things that you've seen and will see and more to come to pass in the future. So excited to be on this podcast. 4 years now, going on 5 strong with Michael and talking all things Star Trek. And over the years, we've been morphing more toward writing life, all kinds of stuff writing related, but also with that Star Trek through line through most of it. We're super excited to have a wonderful guest with us back again tonight. Glad to have her with us. So Kelli, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Kelli Fitzpatrick. I am a science fiction author. I am a freelance writer for the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game. My Marvel novel came out this past March. It is Captain Marvel Carol Danvers Declassified, that tells the life story of Carol Danvers from the comics. I also write short stories in a variety of genres, including westerns and space westerns and fantasy and cyberpunk, etc.
You're all over the place. And that's why we brought you on the show tonight. Because of that, had been posed the question, what genre has Star Trek not covered? What was our discussion about that? Could anyone here, Kelli, Jim, come up with a genre that Star Trek in some form or fashion has not covered?
So like my initial reaction to this question was, I'm pretty sure they've done just about all of them, like all mainstream genres. Like horror has definitely been covered. There's a lot of episodes where there's a monster or creature of some kind trapped on the ship with them. There's definitely been some romance episodes where the primary arc is a relationship one. There's of course the detective stories when we get the Sherlock, throwback. And I would say we probably can pull out some Western plots. Like there's the traditional where they like go on the holodeck and they're like in the Old West. But I think the trappings and maybe the vibe of Western also comes through in some other episodes, especially maybe in Enterprise. So I'm struggling to find something. Oh, and then of course we have science fiction that maybe is the underlying, one that's running through a lot of this. I'm interested to see what else it develops in this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, they even did a journalistic one recently, which was quite interesting on S&W, right? They did a journalistic one. Jim, could you think of any genres that have not been touched by Star Trek?
I maybe subgenres, like subgenres, like gothic kind of romances or gothic, like Southern Gothic, like but that's so American focused that I don't know that they necessarily want to go that route, because Star Trek theoretically is supposed to be a little bit more broader. The only genre I can really think of that Star Trek I don't think has done, it probably wouldn't do because it's mainstream broadcast television, and for the longest time before it went to cable, it was PG-13, right? It was network television, and you wouldn't do it. But I don't think we really had a Star Trek like erotica type of storyline. A couple have gotten close, I think a little bit, but I mean it's been pretty tame because it's been network television, right? Or it's been mainstream television. But then is erotica a genre? I mean, I think it is. I think certainly there are some categories of erotica, but I think that's something that Star Trek just doesn't. It's like by its nature doesn't do.
Well, they had that one Klingon thing with Ash Tyler that could you put on loop and call it that maybe
Yeah, like there's
Maybe.
they
in
they have
Discovery.
explored sexuality, but in I think a nuanced philosophical way.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I think that's different from what Jim is the genre
Correct.
that Jim is describing.
Mhm.
Um,
But everything
yeah,
else, yeah, I think they've hit just about everything else.
yeah, I think you could make a case for adventure, stories, travel, like sort of travelogue kind of stories. We've got some of those.
Even
Um,
family level stories, they've gone into Jane
like
Austen
family
level
drama, yeah.
family drama. And so because of that question, we were like, okay, so then if you wanted to take your favorite genre, how would you wrap it into your Star Trek story? Now, I find this interesting for the reason that when I do a session zero with my players, I don't only ask them what their favorite Star Trek is because sometimes they don't have a favorite Star Trek. They may have never watched Star Trek before. I
Mm.
do ask them intentionally what their favorite type of TV shows and stories are for the purpose of integrating that into my game so that they feel like they get it. It could be like fantasy. Maybe they came from playing Dungeons and Dragons. Can you do Star Trek as a fantasy game?
Yeah, and I was thinking about fantasy when you were talking there. I feel like Star Trek frequently blurs the line between like what's science and what's, fantastical elements because um, you know, magic is just science we don't understand. So I think, is Q doing magic? It kind of like essentially magic, right? And so I think that's where like thinking about what is the nature of the interventions that this character is doing on the plot? Are they easily explained by technology that we understand? And if not, um, like, is that going to feel more like magic to your players? And is that what everybody wants and is cool with? But I think if you like that vibe, there's a lot of stuff there that can either feel like omnipotent, godlike being level magic, or maybe like mystical, Kaiopaka has an understanding with things. Do we have an explanation for that? Maybe wormhole aliens, maybe not. Like maybe there's something going on here that like we can't explain with science. So yeah, I think it's very interesting to kind of navigate that like technology versus magic versus maybe even spiritual, kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Jim, what do you think?
Can it do fantasy? Yeah, I mean, sure. You've got enough superpowered beings in Star Trek. You get the gods that show up, right? Like Apollo, and you got characters like the Dowd and the Metrons,
mm.
and the Qs, and Trelane, whether he's a Q or not. I mean, Strange New Worlds seem to suggest it, but when you can do amazing things with the snap of your finger, and there's no clear, apparent technological reason for that, that's it's magic. Until, like Kelly said, it's magic until proven to be science.
Yeah.
I was almost going to say that that Robin Hood episode was fantasy, but that's not really fantasy. That's alternate history. There was no fantasy involved in that.
There's the Beowulf episode on Voyager.
There was a Beowulf episode. Yeah.
Well, but that's a good point, Jim, of like um, the feel of sort of traditional Tolkien style fantasy, or I should say traditionally Western fantasy, is it's more than just the magic. Like having a setting that evokes that, can go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Like a journey. Let's talk because I think the quick cheat that most Star Trek writers might do is throw people into a holodeck to experience a different genre of literature. What are some other creative ways, if we're going to riff a little bit, pick your favorite genre outside of Star Trek, and how might you, not using a holodeck, create a game that hits those points, that sweet spot for your players if they want to do a different genre?
Yeah, I think one of them is, of course, visit a new place, and the new place has elements of the setting, tropes that your group is excited about. So if you want to have a horror setting, you're going to a dark cave with creepy sounds, or whatever. You're lost in the tunnels, or trapped on a derelict ship, or whatever. Um, but I think also like you can actually think about the plot structure. So if you want a thriller, you need some element that's kind of closing in, and you need a ticking clock, and you can do that a lot of ways. If you want a mystery, you need something hidden, that's going to be revealed. And so I don't know. I think considering like what would be like in a traditional Sherlockian mystery, you're solving a murder. Well, murders can happen anywhere. They can happen on starships, and it doesn't have to be a murder. It can be anything. So like, what's happening on your starship that they're going to solve, and how are you going to like update that for the Star Trek world and kind of start swapping out elements of the trope?
Nice. So speaking about horror thrillers, I think about the episode. It's not very popular, but with Beverly Crusher and some ancestor that was very much
Oh,
like
the
a
lamp
ghost.
ghost.
The lamp ghost, right? So you have that one.
Yeah.
Can you think of other ones that are kind of horror? I mean, we just had our very first zombie one episode, which was amazing. I love that Klingon.
There's quite a few Enterprise episodes, actually. And also, I would argue the Discovery episode where they first encounter the beings who got like trapped in the helical. They get like twisted and maimed. Like that one. That one's pretty horrific.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Anything with the Gorn on Discovery you could argue that that's essentially a monster movie plot.
Good point.
Yeah, and there's that episode with Riker where he was being experimented upon by aliens, and he wasn't getting any sleep, and he was in the middle of a play, and his brain started coming apart because he was having that split stuff going on. That was definitely horror. I mean, or some element of horror.
Psychological horror, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of body horror in Star Trek. A lot of body horror,
yeah. I mean, there's that one episode of Next Gen. I don't remember offhand all the details, but there was that bit where it's just horrifying what Starfleet officers have to go through, right? There's that one scene where they come around the corridor, and there's a Starfleet officer like phased into the floor.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's horrible. So that's that episode itself was probably not a horror type of episode, but there was some pretty awful body horror type of stuff happening. And then even with the Borg, right? I mean, the Borg are body horror all over the place when you think about what they're doing to you, taking you apart, and then taking your personality and your mind away and stuff. And
yep.
Picard, I mean, they explored it a little bit with Picard, but they could have certainly done more. And if that episode had come out now, I think they would have done a much deeper psychological.
Yeah. Picard season 3, though, the Borg Queen in the last episode, that was straight out of Aliens. That was so Ridley Scott, the way she was positioned, so arachnid-like. I thought that was a really cool callback to Alien from there. Good. Now I'm going to pick a genre to riff on, and then Jim, you can pick your genre. I was thinking about like 1930s and 40s cop shows, the old classic Dick Tracy level. And we've seen, of course, we know Picard does that in the holodeck, so I'm not even going to call that in. But I was watching an episode of Voyager the other day when Tom Paris got set up as a murderer. They had planted some memories in his brain. And now Tuvok was the detective looking at all the clues. And the way it was written, the scenes between Paris and the woman who he was having an affair with, the lines were so 1937 classic Hollywood. I was like, oh, they had a ball writing this when I went back and saw that. And we also saw it. Again, I hate to go to a holodeck episode, DS9 with the James Bond kind of feel, that kind of genre of classic Hollywood, cops, robbers. Really enjoy it when Star Trek does that. We have the entire Iosians, of course, an entire planet of Chicago mobsters, which falls into it. But I thought Star Trek does a good job with the cops and robbers genres.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's some episodes of Deep Space Nine where Odo is like solving a case where I was like, this is Law and Order on a space station.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have players who are into that and like those type of mysteries, I think it's really cool. I know there's a free mission brief called JAG for Judge Advocate Jury's Office, where you can do a lot of that type of investigative work.
I
Right.
loved Jag so much, that television show. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a genre that maybe Star Trek hasn't done a lot of. Would be like political thrillers.
Yeah.
Undiscovered Country did it a little bit because you saw the different politics involved in the assassination attempt. I think maybe they do it more with the Klingons, right? Like the whole next gen Worf storyline with the High Council and his discommodation and all that stuff.
Also with the Zindi in Enterprise, especially like toward the end of that arc where there's just a whole lot of political intrigue and council meetings and that sort of thing. But yeah, I really love that aspect of Star Trek when they lean into that, and that would be really fun as like a campaign of like, to be a dignitary in this feuding situation. Like that would be awesome.
I would love that. Keith DeCandido wrote the novel, and it's like West Wing. I read
Articles
it.
of
Articles of the Federation.
Yes.
So you could bring in some of that flair, that West Wing of Star Trek, which I love. West Wing, one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yep.
That would be so fun to play admirals and have to deal with the political resource management. I think that there would be some very interesting dice rolls in Star Trek Adventures. And I hope one day to get around to playing that level.
Well, especially with the 2E social conflict, mechanic, like that would be really awesome.
Well, you could even use the new testing a theory mechanic. I forget exactly what it's called. That's in the exploration guide, because oftentimes political theory is out there too. It has to be tested and you have to work it. So there's a lot of fun ways you could say, I think if we do this, they're going to react like this. And then you could use that mechanic to see how wise your admiral is strategically and tactically in a lot of central settings. All right, Jim, what other genre might you draw in?
Oh gosh, there's so many.
But what's your favorite that you would want to bring in?
Ooh, I have one after Jim goes, unless you want me to go first.
Probably
Jim has a favorite subject.
Ooh,
I know he loves to study and write about. So I want him to talk about it and how
Jim says Westerns.
I'd say Westerns, I think. I think to a certain degree, Star Trek, the original series, and DS9 in particular did Westerns really well, right? And you got Wagon Train to the Stars, of course, is the classic expectation of Star Trek, and then you got what was it, Bonanza for DS9, where you got the homestead. Everybody comes to the homestead instead of you going off into the Wild West to explore things. But I think there's so much material with the traditional Western that you can really play with it. Even though we've got plenty of Star Trek and plenty of DS9, I think there's still a lot of places we can play with it, especially revisionist Westerns and weird Western, right? I mean, I love weird Westerns, and I think there's a lot of play in there where you could do a weird science fiction Western.
Yeah, I mean, one of my earliest memories is Spectre of the Gun, TOS. I may have watched that episode it just caught my attention every time as a kid that they were out there in a gunfight and Chekhov's getting shot. And that was a good one. And then the TNG episode, Fistful of Datas, is of course so fun. That one, those are straight up Westerns, which are really good.
But also there's like a lot of episodes, I think TNG, Deep Space Nine, where like there's people sort of on the edges of these colonies and these sort of frontier areas who are trying to negotiate, like, what does it look like to be very far from our civilization, interacting with other civilizations, and that's an interesting space to tell stories in.
I love that frontier, definitely. I thought, Jim, you were going to say Egyptology.
See, Egyptology, I don't know. Well, I mean, I guess it could be a genre if you think about like Lauren Haney and not Agatha Christie. Who's the writer that did a lot of Egypt stuff? and a
Um,
couple other ones. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to do with Egypt, but again, Egypt is so Earth centric.
Is it though?
I think to do it outside of Earth, you'd have to like take a lot of the, I don't want to say tropes, but take a lot of the bits and pieces of Egyptology that are like the classic times of things, and then put a science fiction spin on it and throw it over to another culture, maybe.
But Jim, to me, it seems like in the public psyche, there's so many conspiracy theories that aliens were involved with the construction of the pyramids.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's like, oh, easy to write. Oh, let's meet the species that actually influenced Egypt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you can even get into that, and this goes back to the magic and technology angle. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in ancient Egyptian religion and ancient Egyptian magic that could very easily be tweaked into advanced technology and turn that into all kinds of cool stuff, like their the portals in there, or the doorways in there.
Yes.
Those could be doorways to alternate dimensions, and then you got the Iconians or the Tilakal or the there you go.
We've yet to see a pyramid-shaped starship.
really? Is that true?
Not in Star Trek.
Full pyramid in Star Trek?
Not in Star Trek. I mean, we certainly have them in Stargate, and that would be easy enough to port over.
Right?
Yeah.
Correct. So I could see, again, Egyptology being an easy episode to write about.
I ran a Star Trek game a million years ago, and I had a pyramid in it, but it was fun because I teased my players, because at the time we had two GMs, and we were switching back and forth episodes, and this is so ridiculous. I'll be honest. We one of the guys had their basement set up to kind of look like the bridge of the ship, and he had a big chalkboard, right, on wheels, one of those old wheeled chalkboards that we would use as our view screen, right? And so as the teaser for my episode, I drew a big square on it and said, "This is what you see on the view screen coming into the next episode." And they're like, "Oh, it's a big square. It's got to be Borg." Right. But then in the teaser for the episode that I ran, I had it rotate. So instead of it being, you're seeing the bottom of the pyramid, and then it rotated, then you actually see the pyramid itself coming into it. And I had a lot of Egyptian elements in that particular episode, but it was a one-off. I didn't think I could build a whole campaign around it. I could now, but at the time,
that sounds great.
I could do it.
I heard someone on social media on the Facebook channel said that they just ran their first musical.
Oh.
Star Trek Adventures episode.
Did the players have to sing?
I don't. I asked him for details, so I'm waiting to hear back. I asked him to do a write-up for continuing missions, but immediately I was like, you know what? My players probably won't watch this by the time I set this up in person. I said, I'm going to do a dance-off one where the players actually have to get up and communicate through dance. And I said, oh, this will be fun to do, like a musical dance-off episode.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's fun to get players to actually do stuff at the table,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just say, you just got to be careful with that, about how much you're asking them to do versus what their players are, or what their characters are doing.
Yeah.
But a dance-off sounds like a lot of fun.
My other genre is apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic. So like I love First Contact when they're, post World War III. That would be a super fun setting to run a game in as people are like rebuilding and all these factions and stuff. Like the destruction of Vulcan in the Kelvin verse, like there's times when like entire planets like undergo destruction or are about to, or in Prodigy we have the kind of fall of Solum, and that would be fascinating to play with. I don't know. There's a lot of apocalyptic settings, if that's your vibe, where you could play all kinds of things.
Yeah, like the Vaadwaur in Voyager, that they had all gone into hibernation after basically having a war that destroyed their civilization and being revived out of that. They're scary.
Yeah. Oh, and then there's the two societies where the robots killed them in Prototype,
The Kravik and the Prelon, I think.
Yeah, Prelar, yep.
Prelar, that's right.
Prelar, yeah.
Yeah, very cool stuff. What about... Oh, go ahead, Jim.
I was just thinking of riffing that... I don't know. It wouldn't be the most Well, I mean, it could be. I was just thinking about telling the story of Earth post World War III, leading up to First Contact,
Yep.
because that's very. I mean, that's obviously very post-apocalyptic. But like, what was happening in that little chunk of time, even before what we see in First Contact with Cochrane and everybody else. Like, what I almost worry that that's almost too
A lot,
too
but
current, too
if
current
you
events to really want to get into.
well, a lot happened. We've never seen it in full detail, but it's been sprinkled throughout the Star Trek
Mhm.
60 years. You'll hear tidbits of here and there. So if you grab that, you might be able to wrap something around that. If you go onto uh, uh, Memory Alpha and you scroll through the years, you get little tidbits of things that happened. So there could be some story building around that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool time period. Or
Mhm.
I find it fascinating anyway.
Yeah. My last idea is, could you create a family based Star Trek game? We've seen a lot of stories, I think, about Worf and Alexander dealing with Alexander's transition, or Will Crusher. And I kind of like that. Like, to me, I would love to live on a spaceship with my family, just traveling. It'd be just so fun. And
Mhm.
you can create family challenge stories. I know on our RPG we roll on random tables of the Jane Austen drama.
Mm.
Mhm.
And we roll it, and that oftentimes they're more engaged with that than they are with solving the scientific problem. They're like, oh, my kid just got kicked out of school, I got to deal with this from 10,000 light years away. Yeah, and it's fun to do stuff like that. So we have our Cosby Show moments.
Mhm. I think you'd want to have a good session zero with your group to figure out, like, we want to do this family kind of focused story, but how far do you want to go with it? Like that one episode with Worf, and he leads the away team, and the one woman gets killed, and her son has become an orphan,
Yes.
and he kind of feels like he needs to take care of him a little bit. That's hard, right? I mean, like, okay, your parent dying, is that something that the group wants to explore in the
Right.
game? Maybe not. Maybe they want to do more of a um, you know, family sitcom more than they want to do a family drama, right? And then you just got to figure out what levers are you pulling and pushing to keep it on this track versus this track.
Wasn't DS9 7 years of family though?
Kind of.
There's a lot of family and parenting,
Yeah.
and found family, which I think is very common in Star Trek. I
Mhm.
also have always enjoyed like the sort of family dynamics that appear to happen like on Beta Z and on Vulcan. There's these very sort of traditional family structures, and then there's people
Mhm.
who are kind of bucking the system and challenging the rules, and those things are really really fascinating to play with as a character
Mhm.
as a player playing a character who's doing those things.
It
Mhm.
is. Yeah. We could literally go on all night with genres. I've yet to see us mention something that Star Trek has not done. This is my challenge to everyone in the universe. Comment, like, respond. Let us know if you think we're missing something. And I'm sure Jim, if he finds you hit something very provocative, he'll probably commission like a mission brief set to be written about it so that we can cover it.
Mhm.
All right, good stuff. Thank you, Kelli, for joining us for this conversation. We love it. Please tell us also, where can we find your work? I like to remind people, because you have such a diverse body of work yourself, just like Star Trek. So tell us where people can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on my website, which is Kelly with an I, Fitzpatrick.com. On my publications page, it will list all of my works and where you can find my Star Trek stuff and my Captain Marvel stuff and my Westerns and whatever floats your boat.
So cool. And the
So
Captain
cool.
Marvel was such a good read. I'm telling you.
It's
Thank you.
It's
awesome.
so good. We have a show about it. Look it up. She came on and talked to us about it on a previous
Mhm.
continuing conversation. All right. Sounds like it's time for gratitude. My gratitude is going to go to writers in mass. I recently was at WriterCon in Oklahoma in August 2025. And it was so fun hearing people's ideas. There were no bad ideas. We were all trying to execute our pitches and practice and criticize each other, constructive criticism. Had so many great conversations sitting at the bar with writers who've been writing literally 60 to 70 years in some cases, of all poets from all over. And it just got me so, like, I usually go to a convention, and by day 2 or 3, I want to go home because I'm an
Mm.
introvert. I really don't, I feel it takes a lot of my energy. This was the first time in my life I've been to a convention, and on day 4, I should have stayed the last day. I left a day early thinking I was going to be like bored and irritated by people. I was like, oh, I should have stayed that 5th day for the final workshops. So I've never had that happen before. And I think what it was is I was surrounded by creatives who were just riffing off of each other, kind of like we did tonight. So that's my gratitude is for WriterCon and conventions like that where we sharpen each other's skills. What about you, Kelly?
I think my gratitude is for my students. I'm currently teaching 2 classes, one on creating compelling characters and one on Star Trek and AI ethics. And my students are engaged and excited, and they show up and they do the reading and they watch the episodes, and then we have fantastic discussion. And I'm just so thankful for them for participating in this wonderful inquiry education process.
Oh my goodness. If you ever need a guest, I know you've had me guest speaker for your classes before. If you need it for the Star Trek AI ethics one,
Fantastic. Thank you
I'm
so much.
all over. We had to put it in at my work. I'm on the AI committee at my work. So
Nice.
we're doing it in real time and dealing with a lot of these issues that Star Trek does cover. So awesome.
Very cool.
Should look up Al Spader, the creator of Sentience. That's all about AIs and ethics and sentience and all that great stuff.
Yeah, he's amazing.
What a fantastic leading edge subject. Good job, Kelly. All right. Jim, take us out.
My gratitude is to all the writers out there who make the effort and time and who take the time and effort to thank the writers who've mentored them or inspired them or given them advice, because that is one of the great ways to find more writing books to read and to look for, and to scan for nuggets of gold. I just happened to be reading a recent Joe Hill anthology, and he mentioned Ray Bradbury, Zen and the Art of Writing, and Lawrence Block, How to Tell Lies for Money and Profit, or something, whatever that title is. And I love the fact that Joe Hill talked about his writing life and his writing process, but also called those 2 particular authors and books out. So that gives me a chance. Now I've got more books I can go, grab from the library and read, and not mark up because they're from a library, but maybe I'll buy my own copy and start the marginalia or whatever. But I really appreciate it when writers not just share their knowledge and insights, but also make the effort to reference who they've learned from. Right. And then share that knowledge, passing it on. I really dig on that. So thank you for that.
Good. Pass that love forward. Very good. Pay it forward and pay it backwards. That's what it sounds like. Wonderful. All right. Well, until next time, the conversation continues. Everybody out there, IDIC.
Live long and prosper, y'all. Be safe, be well. We'll see you next time.